Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel to discuss all things aviation. Angela Duva here, welcoming you back. We are in the last few weeks of 2020, the year that showed us flames, and we are still debating the issue of vaccines at this stage. It's not something to be worried about though, because vaccines usually take longer than a year to produce. Perhaps that's why we are at the stage we're at right now. Today we're discussing what has been mooted in some quarters in the aviation industry, the issue of a compulsory vaccination. In other words, no vaccination, no fly. IATA, the International Air Transport Association, estimates that over 157 billion US dollars has been lost due to the coronavirus. This is because people were under quarantine, people were self-isolating, people had less appetite to travel, people were working from home, airlines couldn't enter the borders of other states. Therefore, there was a disruption in the industry, and over 157 billion US dollars was lost due to the coronavirus. Now, because of that, vaccines have been touted as the next best solution. But the public ambivalence towards such a solution, a proposed solution, has been very, very loud. People are skeptical. People are pushing back. People are raising all sorts of questions around the issue of vaccines. So where is this public outcry coming from? We've seen reports, for instance, of the Australian Prime Minister hinting that vaccinations may be compulsory before people enter their territory. We've seen the airline counters also indicating that it may adopt a rule of no vaccination, no fly. That is where the public outcry is coming from. People are saying, should we really be vaccinated before we fly? Is it necessary, or do airlines have that right to demand that we be vaccinated before we can actually be allowed to fly? The question that begs an answer is the public really justified in asking these questions? Are these agitations, explainable on one basis or another? Now, if you look at the history of vaccines, vaccines hardly ever get produced in such a short space of time. The coronavirus wasn't really been given a name until early this year, early 2020. Fast forward 8 months later, we have a few, so-called vaccines doing the rounds, and airlines want to scoop them up and make them mandatory before people can fly. That is what is making people agitated. Why is this vaccine taking such a short time to be produced? Is it really a vaccine? Can we trust it? What are the quality controls that have been in place? Where and when and how have the trials been made? Do we know the side effects? Are we not walking into a trap? Those are the issues that are making people very, very skeptical of this vaccine that is being touted as the next best solution. The second point that's making the public feel a little bit uneasy about these vaccines is the attitude of those who are supposedly producing these vaccines. We know that at a global scale, the economic muscle and the scientific muscle is not the same. Some territories will be a step ahead in comparison to others when it comes to the production of required medicines. Now, you recall that at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a controversial statement issued by two doctors from France, who in their myopic minds believed that the vaccine should be tested in Africa. Now, that is an unethical statement. I don't care what the French think, but that's an unethical statement, a stupid, foolish statement also to say, where someone says, make the vaccine in one country and then go and test it in a whole continent because you believe that continent must be used as a guinea pig. That was very, very irresponsible, very, very childish, very, very, very infantile of them to say. That has made people think, if these French doctors, if a French company was to produce a vaccine, the attitude of the West is already that this vaccine must then be tested on Africans. Africans must be the guinea pigs, and that cannot be acceptable. So that has also caused anxiety, that has also caused suspicion amongst the minds of people towards these so-called vaccines. The second point is the CEO of Pfizer, one of the leading pharmaceuticals, has not taken the vaccine. CNN was talking to him and they posed the question, have you taken the vaccine? And indeed the answer was no. And his response or his justification for not taking the vaccine was that it's an ethical thing to do. He does not want to jump the queue. So he's concerned about the ethics of jumping the queue and taking the vaccine. He'd rather just wait his turn in the queue before he takes the vaccine. That's not very convincing. That's not very convincing. It's like a chef not wanting to take or to taste his own food. He's produced the food, he does not taste it. Would you trust such a chef? Those are some of the reasons why people are skeptical towards this vaccine. The third reason relates to fake news and conspiracy theories. We know we've always had so many conspiracy theories around vaccines for so many years. The coronavirus vaccine is not the first one to cause such a public debate, on the issue. We've seen in the past, people coming up with so many theories on vaccines, why vaccines are there, what they do, how dangerous they are, and stuff like that. I mean, these are not scientific, proposals that are being made, but they're just people airing their views, and some of them are really baseless. Now, a case in point here is that of the South African Chief Justice Mogoeng, the leader of the judiciary in South Africa, the leader of the arm of government, the judicial arm of government. He has been trending on the news as well of late for speaking at a particular public event about vaccines. In fact, he went into prayer and he prayed, and his prayer might have been perceived as fake news. Because in his prayer, he prayed and said, he's praying against any vaccine that is not of the Lord. He's praying against any vaccine that may be, a vehicle to give people what they call the mark of the beast, some number called 666. Now, if a statement like that comes from the head of, an arm of government, a senior-ranking judicial officer, the most senior in South Africa, the head of the judiciary, the Chief Justice. Honestly, in the minds of the gullible public, they will run with those words, because to them, if the Chief Judge believes that these vaccines are evil and prays against them, surely there must be something in there. Remember, quite a number of people are suggestible. You start a rumor and you start it at the right office. You start at the highest, most respected office. They will run with it. They will run with it. That is one of the other problems of the, of the pushback towards vaccines. We need to be seeing more science and less of these, fear-induced public opinions that we are seeing from members of the public and from high-ranking, officers in government as well. So we need to see that. We need to see a change in that space. Otherwise, there will always be a pushback towards these vaccines. Let us allow the scientists, the people who are trained in this field, the people who know what they're talking about, to lead the conversation. So do airlines have the right to demand, that people be vaccinated? What the airline Qantas of Australia was proposing, a no vaccination, no fly rule. Do they have that particular right? There are other vaccines that you cannot enter certain spaces without. For instance, take the yellow fever vaccination. If I fly from South Africa now and spend some time in Ethiopia or Somalia or Somaliland or in the Horn of Africa, somewhere there, if I come back, or even to West Africa, some parts of West Africa, and then I fly back to South Africa will not allow me to enter its borders if I do not produce my yellow fever vaccination certificate. But that is not an airline demanding that I produce or that I get vaccinated before I fly. It has nothing to do with the airlines. They're not states, they're not governments, they're just corporations making money. Their aim is profit, not the protection of lives. Maybe to some extent, the protection of lives, but their chief aim is to make profit. So they have no right, as much as they don't have much obligations towards the individual. So, while South Africa may demand that I produce my yellow fever vaccination card upon entering South African borders, it is not an airline making that demand. It is a state, a government, which makes that policy. and has the systems in place to ensure that indeed I do get vaccinated for yellow fever. It becomes a little bit difficult to conceive a world where airlines should be the ones making the policies on no vaccination, no fly. It becomes really, really tricky. The no vaccination, no fly regulation, or the proposed regulation, poses so many ethical and legal questions. We know that the right to health, or the right to health care, or the right to the best attainable state of health, depending on which instrument at the international level that you're going to read. But, collectively, it's the right to health. Includes your access to health care, includes your access to medicines as a person. But equally, it includes your right to what we call informed consent. Now, in other words, before you consent to the medicine, you must be informed fully about the medicine. How is this medicine going to help you as an individual? And what are the likely side effects of that medicine? Or what are the likely side effects of that medicine on a person like you? Now, with this virus, we don't necessarily know much about it yet. Scientists are always scratching their heads trying to learn one thing or another. Every day they're learning something new. That will impact on the right to informed consent. But equally, as much as you have the right to healthcare and the right to medicine, you also have what we call a right to reject that medicine. A right to say, no, I don't want this medicine. That's why you can go to a hospital and the doctors might want to infuse blood into your system, and you are free and at liberty to say, nope, for cultural reasons or for religious reasons or for personal reasons, I do not want to be infused with blood. Allow me to exit the earth. It's your choice. But when it comes to this no vaccination, no fly principle, there's a clear violation of that right to reject medicine. And if the narrative is being driven by airlines and not by states, then it becomes problematic. Because airlines, much like pharmaceutical companies, are corporate entities whose chief aim is the maximization of profit and taking care of the interests of shareholders. So if they are to be at the forefront of such a policy, then there is a problem. There is a serious, huge problem. So while the issue of vaccines is very, very pertinent these days, there remains confusion on how, when, or by whom these will be rolled out. And there remains confusion on the regulations on who may fly, under what circumstances. There will continue to be public debate on this issue because it raises so many ethical, legal, and human rights questions that need to be responded to. But perhaps the narrative is not being driven by the right people. Because it's very concerning that at the forefront of this whole thing will be the corporations that are geared towards profit maximization and taking care of the interests of shareholders rather than a public duty to ensure the safety and well-being of individuals. I hope that was a thought-provoking episode, and if it was, please do click the like button below. Continue to share this, continue to urge others to share and to follow us on social media as well. We've had some engagements with some followers. That's quite interesting engagements we had there, and hopefully we'll engage with you on any topic. Continue to suggest topics in the comments below as well. Our social media handles are below, you can see them below. And until next time, I would like to urge you to keep adding those hours, because whatever it is that you do, remember it's a game of hours. Remember, every hour counts, and every hour needs you closer to the cockpit. So whatever it is that you're busy with, whether it's an hour of just relaxing over the holidays, whether it's an hour of revisiting your books, whether it's an hour of taking off to the skies and flying, and hour of sharing some ideas with other fellow aviators. Keep adding those hours, because with every hour the cockpit beckons. Until next time, Angelo Dube here signing out and saying cheers.